Okay, so let's start with the obligatory start here. How many of you have heard of Counterparty? Awesome, wonderful, that's an encouraging sign. How many of you have a Counterparty asset? Oh, wow, okay, so I'm in a good audience here. I thought it was more of an introductory course, but good. I want to try to teach you how to use those assets more effectively and really start thinking about what those assets mean. A lot of you are probably very depressed about the BTC price today, but Counterparty is doing well. And I think Counterparty is here to stay. And I think there's a lot to Counterparty. And I think that the best way to really introduce us to the power of assets in Counterparty is to kind of think back in history for an easy example. Let's look into the year 1793. There was a coffee house in the New England colonies. 1793 was a time when classless capitalism was in the air. Monarchies were coming to an end, and there was a real spirit of commerce, and there was a real enthusiasm for a new model by which we could all engage in trade and gain wealth and run a society. This coffee house was the Tontine Coffee House. There was a lot of fighting in the Tontine Coffee House. There was a lot of trade. There was a lot of hucksters. There was a lot of speculation. There's really a lot of the things that we see in Counterparty, including gambling. It wasn't uncommon in this coffee house for people, when the lights went out, to get the cards out and play some games and enjoy themselves. So I think that Counterparty is very similar in theme to the state of the Tontine Coffee House was in 1793. Counterparty, as most of you know, is a place to manage your cryptographic assets. It's a wallet for managing those assets. It's a Counterparty is a distributed exchange, a clearinghouse for all of these assets. And I think that it's worth noting what happened to the Tontine Coffee House. It itself became the New York Stock Exchange about 30 years later, and this was the prototype for what was the final version of the Tontine Coffee House. And in fact, Tontine Coffee House was itself converted to the New York Stock Exchange as it was located on Water Street and Wall Street. So hopefully we could expect the same kind of outcome here with Counterparty. And I think that one of the things that really separates Counterparty from everything else in the space is its use of the Bitcoin blockchain. I think this is really important, and I think that we should give it a significant amount of credibility for this reason. In fact, I think we should put all of the faith that we have in Bitcoin in Counterparty for this reason. I think that though there's a lot of excitement about the altcoins, and though there's a lot of cool stuff being done in these other platforms, BitShares and Next, et cetera, they all require the trust that is not present in their blockchains. They all require a lot of trust in order to run. They need mining trust, they need mining energy, they need all of these things that is really difficult to acquire. And it's difficult to acquire because blockchains work. Because blockchains work, miners are incentivized to join the longest chain. Well, guess what? There is a longest chain that's going to remain the longest chain. It's the first mover, it has that advantage. I think a lot of the stuff that Andreas says about assets is absolutely spot on. I think we're headed towards a world where there are tons of altcoins, but I think it's time to start talking about them in terms of altcoins and altchains. And I don't think that there's a lot of competition in the altchain space. I think there's tons of competition in the coin space. And I think that that's what Counterparty does. And in a lot of ways, too, this harkens back, I think, into the early days of the internet. There were competing protocols for HTTP. There were commercial protocols. There were things like Gopher. And nobody who wanted to do a website back then or wanted to do a web platform really succeeded in creating an alternative to HTTP. And I think that that's kind of what you're advocating with some of these altchains, is like you're creating a new chain. But let's just use the one that works. You're never going to beat the faith that you already have in that chain that is the longest. So for those of you who don't know, Counterparty is principally built on Bitcoin. All transactions require Bitcoin in order to persist on the network. There is an additional currency, the XCP, which is itself an asset. It's a special asset. It can be thought of as stored value in escrow or Bitcoin in escrow, but is not the principal currency of Counterparty. The principal currency is Bitcoin. And in fact, for those of you who don't even have a Counterparty wallet, you are a Counterparty user, or you could be. Any person can work with any of your addresses and in a Counterparty capacity and store data about you or give you assets to your addresses. You're already in on Counterparty. And I think that this will be a popular realm for apps as well. The addresses that you have on the Counterparty network are not separate addresses. They are just your Bitcoin addresses. You can import your blockchain wallet address into Counterparty. You can generate a new address straight from Counterparty, but they're all Bitcoin addresses. And I think, too, one of the neat things about the Bitcoin in this capacity is it attests to the intrinsic value that a lot of us have been claiming exists in Bitcoin. It's there. It's there as is realized by Counterparty. And I think, too, what is cool is that in a lot of ways, Bitcoin has been compared to digital gold. And in a lot of ways, it is digital gold. And in a lot of ways, too, it will function as did physical gold, and that this resource, this commodity, will back other platforms. It will be the basis by which we create economic systems. They will be backed at some level, a little different than physical gold, but in some level by Bitcoin, by this digital gold. And again, this is Counterparty itself leveraging that faith in that digital gold for your own assets. So I think that it's important, too, that you all recognize that let's say you decide to check out Counterparty. Maybe it will or maybe it won't succeed, but certainly all of your work will remain there. You could always migrate it to another platform in the future should one materialize. You don't have to worry about the chain forking. You don't have to worry about a lot of the problems of your investment not realizing itself due to a problem in the protocol, because it is based on Bitcoin. It's not going anywhere. And certainly I do think the Counterparty is in it for the long term. But it's a very low risk engagement for any of you who are thinking about how to engage in the 2.0 space. So here is a slide, which is the asset creation slide. For anybody who hasn't created a digital asset, it is exactly this simple in Counterparty. There's a Bitcoin address denoted there at the top. There's a name for this asset. I used the name of presentation here, but it could just as easily have been gold, or it could have been MSFT or anything like that. There's a description, easy enough. There's a quantity, that's how many of these assets are available, how many shares you're issuing, or how many pounds of lead you might be holding in your basket, or any of these things. There is a ability to make it divisible. So are there subunits? Can we spend cents, fractions of a unit? And there's a callability checkbox. To be callable is a really cool feature. It allows you to issue an asset and then buy it back at a later time for a negotiated price. Typically, this negotiated price is flake, just some amount for the purposes of removing it from somebody. But there's some really creative applications that you can do with this. I think it's important, too, that you understand that an asset is decoupled from price, like all assets are. They're meant to exist in a market in terms of the pricing in one way or another. So there's no declaration of price on this screen. There are options for fixing the price in the form of a vending machine. If you wanted to, you could issue your asset for a vending machine amount denoted in USD or BTC, but it could also be a counterparty asset itself. It could be that I'm offering sheep for 2 units of wool or some such thing. That is an option that's presented to you through vending machines. You can look at that in your own time. And we'll even talk about that here in a bit. Another nice component of assets that is also available to you is the ability to do distributions. This is really popular with some of the mining pools. You'll see that mining stake in a pool is often, there are a number of pools that are doing this where they are issuing assets for your share in the pool, and then they're issuing dividends through that asset, which is a quick like one-click process for you if you wanted to do it. It's very straightforward. It's a very traditional sort of use. It's a very like 20th century use of assets. It's also important to note that asset registrations cost you half an XCP to create, which is worth knowing. That is a proof of work of sorts that prevents spam into some other things. It's a very low cost. At the moment, it's probably a couple bucks. And there's about 4,200 assets that are defined right now on the network. Most of them are not being used. Most of them are, in fact, just squatted addresses. But the ones that are there are typically commodities and share applications, something very traditional. And I think that kind of harkens back in the Tontine coffee house sense to people that were coming from the old world, using the new technology in a way that they knew from the old world, but not using the technology in the way that the new world can use. And so let's look at a more creative use of assets. Now, unfortunately, for as much as I love this example, they're not actually using Counterparty. I don't know why they're not using Counterparty other than it's a new business, and they're probably trying one thing at a time. I'm hoping to send this to them hereafter and making the case for why it would work better on a Counterparty system. We'll see if they take me up on that. This right here is 99gamers.com. 99gamers is a really cool website that offers a marketplace for used video games. Right now, you're looking at The Legend of Zelda, which is for sale. The inventory isn't held by 99gamers. It's an eBay-esque kind of interface whereby listers can list their Legend of Zelda cartridges and post them for sale. Here you can see there's actually 4 games for sale, but the image cut off with the first 2. And on the first 2 listings, you'll see that there is one Legend of Zelda for sale at 20 units and one at 24 units. Those units are gamer coins. Gamer coins are cool. Gamer coins are bought at the price of 1 USD per gamer coin. They have a vending machine set up on the 99 Gamer site, and you can buy them off of them there. And you insert USD into the machine, and you receive Gamercoin in your account. In this example, it's denoted in that sort of quasi-retro way, which I like. So from the marketing perspective, it's being managed well. There's no subunits in this presentation, and I think this is very welcoming from a branding standpoint right off the bat. Gamers know virtual currency, and I think that this is doing a good job of presenting it to them in that capacity. But then you ask, okay, so what? No big deal. Just marketing is all that you get from this. Well, no. There's some really cool features you get on top of that. So first and foremost, it lets the 99 Gamers community engage in money creation, which you can't do with US dollars. Money creation, of course, is illegal in US currency and impractical and impossible as well. But it's very easily done with Gamercoin, and in fact, that's what they did. So even though they're selling the Gamercoins, there are more Gamercoins that have been issued that were paid for. Those additional ones that were issued were used by 99 Gamers for the purposes of marketing their website. They issued these created Gamercoins to other bloggers, to other YouTubers, and said, hey, check out the service, see what you think. And those people did that. They went ahead and checked out the service, and they liked it, and they wrote about it, and they got a community engaged. And in that capacity, they were able to offload a lot of their marketing budget with this created money that cost them nothing. At some level, those represented shares in the company or some such thing that were given off, but that's what they did. And so they offset their entire marketing budget, I believe, quite nearly with their Gamercoin creation. And then this also speaks to the value of community in a coin. Andreas talks about this as well. But when you create a community, you need a shared store of value, a shared token by which they can confer value and stored energy and stored work between each other. So when you create these currencies, you're also fostering involvement from other community members in a number of ways, and we will get into that here. So this also brings up, well then, why should 99 Gamers use Counterparty? Why can't they just do it themselves? What is it that Counterparty brings them that they're not getting from their existing silo? Well, the easy answer off the bat with that is that there's a lot of work that's been done. They have a lot of effort in their shared libraries. You don't have to worry a lot about persistence and a lot of security matters. So for a programmer, it's an easy integration. And that's a slam dunk right there. But the more specific reason economically is that you've created a market. And I think for a lot of people, this right here says enough, but to spell it out more clearly, you're not smarter than your customers. You're smarter than most of your customers, but you're not smarter than all of your customers. And when you create a market, when you create faith in a currency, you're allowing for people to specialize, to create value, to manage their own imports and exports in your created currency. And you're creating a larger community, and you're creating a greater faith and a greater contribution in your currency as well. I think that really is hurting 99 Gamers. That you can certainly imagine that 99 Gamers users would want to perhaps bet on the outcome of a gameplay contest. Maybe there's something on Twitch TV for which which Gamercoin would be awarded, but they can't do that because it's in a silo. Or even better, right now they're only selling Gamercoin for USD. But what about Turkey? Maybe there's a lot of gamers in Turkey that want to buy and sell games. They can't buy and sell games using USD. So when you decentralize that, when you put it into a marketplace, perhaps some enterprising individual in Turkey will take it upon himself to create a currency creation service that will add a little VIG on top of the $1 US, and he will keep that for himself. 99 Gamers would be happy because they created a larger market, and certainly that enterprising individual will be rewarded for his work, and the community gets larger and everyone's happier. So this is another great argument to be made for decentralizing your currency, even in your own silo. And in a lot of ways, the objections that I've seen to doing this type of thing are very similar to the objections I've heard for, like, why would we want to integrate Twitter, or why would we want to integrate Discuss? These are things that, yeah, you could have done yourself, but it benefits from the network effect. So by joining the larger community and joining the registries that are greater than your own site, you've added value that's greater than the sum of your parts. And I think, too, that communities are a really big topic, certainly in like the whole 2.0 website sort of trend in general. But for all of us here that are running websites, your goal and your aspiration should be create something that is a group of people that have a combined interest. We see this a lot right now where personalities are forming online in certain segments. Maybe you're into Corvettes. Well, there's a forum for Corvettes, and there's YouTube channels for Corvettes. And there's all of these sort of incidental networks that are themselves within the internet. They don't have a shared currency, so we will start to see that change. And I think that when we think about what Counterparty can do, it needs to exist in the sense of how do we enable any given community to work better? How do we create a small economy? And what are the imports and what are the exports of this community? What What is it that the problems are that they have for storing value amongst themselves? And so when you're thinking about your own projects, when you're watching this, I think that you've got to think about, well, what problems do I have that can be tokenized? What resources are scarce that I have that can be put into units and they can be expressed on an exchange? In Gamercoin's case, yeah, they take in US dollars and they export Gamercoin, but in a lot of ways too, they facilitate commerce by video games and such. These are things that they've tokenized at some level and will continue to tokenize on their site, and they will just be an intermediary. They will be a gatekeeper. And for those of you who are thinking about using Counterparty, certainly you are enabled as a monetary control center to exhibit a lot of power over your community in that role. So I think, too, a very common concept with tokenization here is with, I guess, most websites, which in many ways have an economy where content is the import and attention is the export. And so with that, let's look a little bit into Let's Talk Bitcoin. Let's Talk Bitcoin, probably most or all of you have heard of it. I've contributed content to the show. I like contributing content to the show. In a lot of ways, that brought me around, I think, to Counterparty even, is working with this community. LTB started as a podcast, a smaller podcast, then a larger one. It's then spread into a network where additional podcasts were added. More community involvement and more content was being generated. Articles were being written, forum posts were being added, and then at some point, Adam Levine decided to introduce LTB Coin. And when he did LTB Coin at first, I didn't really get it. It was kind of hokey. It was kind of weird. I don't think that Adam Levine entirely got LTB Coin, but I earned some. I earned some for typing in the magic word on the site. I earned some from doing correspondence out in the field. And so I had this LTB Coin, and I'm like, okay, well, what does this do for me? And then I realized at some point that, well, it does for me whatever I want it to do for me, because it's not my silo. And so I'm in a position now to perhaps offload some of the work that I don't like to others and spend my own LTB Coin. I hate editing. I love generating content. I'm recording this right now, and I'll be recording other events here. I don't want to sit at home for 6 hours and pore over those documents, but I'm sure somebody does. I bet you there's a lot of people who weren't here who want to know the scoop first on the forums, and so I'll offer somebody an editor position. I'll say, hey, why don't you take 50% of my LTB coin, and you take it, and they'll take me up on that. And what we've done is we've enabled a specialization of labor. The economy is now more efficient. There's more actors in the economy. There's more faith in the economy, and in the community of LTB. And so I think that type of success story can happen with any of your sites for no cost to you by enabling these types of tokens. In the case of LTB Coin, the export is itself advertisements on the show. So at some level, we can take these LTB Coin and sell them to others on the distributed exchange for things like Bitcoin or maybe Gamercoin or whatever else it is we want for our efforts. There are other examples of Bitcoin integration in LTB that I think are very significant. They are now implementing access tokens. For those of you who have been in the forums for long enough, you will be issued an early token, EARLY, early. And with this token attached to your Bitcoin address, you will be able to access some premium features. There's a very limited membership. The first X thousand users, I don't remember how many it is, those people are at some level or another greater than other people in the community. And you know, we don't exactly know where this is going to go. This is maybe a hokey feature, maybe it's a great feature, but these are the types of things that are being played with. And I think there will be some really smart uses of things like access tokens on websites. Maybe I'm investing a lot of time into LTB to make it a great community, and maybe I'll sell my early token down the line when I decide that I'm not into Bitcoin anymore, or that probably won't happen, but something like that. So yeah, we have a lot of exploring to do. There's a lot of lessons to be learned, because I think we have all of these tools that are here now. My concern isn't that they will be used improperly, but that they won't be used. So I like to get up here and tell all of you about the things you can do with it and encourage you to do that. I think that all of us are economists of one kind or another. I think most of us are really, really, really bad economists. I don't see Jeff Tucker here, so I'm guessing that's true. Maybe I'm wrong. But it's important that we start experimenting and checking it out and seeing what works and writing about it. And I think that there'll be a lot of like grand slams that are just going to be hit out of the park with somebody who really did it right and ended up controlling an entire community's monetary supply. And again, I can't emphasize enough that the efforts that you put into Counterparty are not wasted efforts. They're not wasted efforts because you can always leverage the data. You don't have to worry about the chain forking. If you decide you want to move it into another network later, it's not a big deal. You don't have to worry about that data going away. You can conceivably import that economy into the next one. So get started today. And things that I've been thinking about, and these are rudimentary examples, but stuff that you guys can start thinking about. You clearly have websites, many of you, and you probably think about selling advertisements or endorsements or things like that. So tokenize it. Rather than sell ads for dollars or for Bitcoin, offer ad credits, either 5-minute mentions on your podcast or maybe 1,000 impressions on your site. And tokenize it and then sell the tokens. That's one easy thing you can do right off the bat. You can also engage in money creation once you've done that. So you can do things like awarding listeners in that token, or maybe you could do giveaways or something like that, where perhaps the community starts to buy them, and then you do like a raffle, and somebody wins an interview on the show or something like that. It gains faith with users, and it starts to encourage them to explore as well. Other things that you can do that I've seen that are really cool are things like invites and tickets. So if perhaps you're issuing tickets for a conference like Coins in the Kingdom, and you have a limited early access ticket, you can have 300 of them or so, you can issue those on the blockchain, and you can sell them via a vending machine on the blockchain. Other people can turn around and sell them themselves. That may create additional faith in your network. It may also show you that the market price is too low, or things like this. And then additionally, if you wanted your supply to be publicly inspected and validated by the community, you can do so because it's public data. Voting is another really interesting application I've seen. I've seen a lot of these mining pools that start using Counterparty move towards voting as a Counterparty application. I don't even know what those votes are because I monitor the blockchain and I see them declared and I see them going on. But typically it'll be something like, okay, we'll issue 100 vote shares. We give those to our 100 miners, and then there's a decision to be made, the decision to go left or to go right. So they have those tokens and they can spend it on the address that is right, or they can spend it on the address that is left. And then we count the tally after the date, and maybe we call back those assets, but the vote was held. In that example, that would enable them to buy and sell votes. So that may not be the kind of democracy you want to run on your site, but it might be. And then two, you'll be able to see that that is going on. You'll be able to audit the transition. So maybe there's some additional programmatic rules that you want to add on top of that. The nature of the transitions that can happen with those assets could construct whatever economy you want to define or whatever platform you want to define. Again, we're in the Tontine Coffee House. This may be a great idea or a bad one. Gamification is really cool. I'm seeing some stuff along those routes. So we all hate Candy Crush, I know, but it works for a reason. And so with things like Counterparty, maybe you want to have a forum coin for your forum. And if they sign up another user, they get additional forum coins. If they post more, they get more forum coins. If they tweet about your forum, they get awarded those forum coins. And then maybe you have a raffle or something they could be redeemed for, or some other outlet for them. Or maybe they buy ads on the forum with that. That's the kind of thing that you can do to engage people using Counterparty. And yeah, I think you really need to think about your community in general. So on that note, we've seen these before, torrent sites, typically like private torrent sites where there's only 1,000 users accepted, and then you have to like plead or buy an admission to that torrent site. Well, you could instead perhaps issue access tokens for tvtorrents.com or something, where you have 1,000 entry tokens, and these are sold by a vending machine, or they're giving out, or whatever it is. And you can kind of monitor then who's active user, who's not an active user. You can entice people perhaps to leave the network or stay the network if that value grew, if that torrenting site became very popular, that cost of access would go up. And you can conceivably see people sell their use to somebody else, and maybe there's a better person that comes in. Maybe there's a worse person comes in, but these types of things can happen because it's outside of your silo now, and these are decentralized tokens. There's a couple people doing this in the mobile space. So Gems is one example. I don't know if this project will work or not, but it's a really well-designed website, and the product itself might be pretty stellar. Gems are what you can earn by using this app. It is a kind of instant messaging / Telegram sort of app, so iMessage, that kind of thing. And as you invite people and as you use it, you earn gems. Those gems can then be redeemed for unsolicited bulk messages, spam, to other customers. So maybe it'll work really well, maybe it'll be just a total spam cesspot, I don't know, but it's a cool app that we've never really had before. Similarly, there's an app, a mobile app called Bitsies. Bitsies is kind of cool too. Bitsies allows you to post pictures, either blurry pictures or one picture out of a gallery, for which Bitsies must be spent in order to see the rest of the gallery. It has a very Instagram-esque interface, and when you post these messages to people, you can post a teaser, you can then receive Bitsies, and then you can unlock the rest of the image gallery. I don't know if it's a porn kind of concept or if it's not, but it could be any of these things. It's an app that's kind of cool, and they also use Counterparty assets for this. MeetSpace, we're not limited to just the internet stuff. Obviously, that's where I live most of the time if you haven't seen my Goofy Hat collection. But there's plenty of apps in the real world as well. Because the mobile integration, I think, is pretty easy, we can expect all kinds of stuff here. So right now, there's a major problem that we all have, which is these stupid customer loyalty program tickets that we can redeem for free stuff, for discounted pricing, and all of these things. Well, in the case of Counterparty, again, we're all Counterparty users. So if in this model where you're using Bitcoin to buy your groceries, they can issue a Counterparty address to your blockchain wallet, and they can read your asset list as well. So they can load you up with bonus programs, or if there's a buy 5, get 1 free program, they send that to your wallet in Bitcoin. You don't have to opt into it. You're already a Counterparty user. So this is in many ways akin to like almost cookies were in, I think, in HTTP. But you can see that you'll have things attached to you, either because you asked for it or because you didn't, but these assets will follow your Bitcoin addresses. So I can imagine all kinds of applications for that. Certainly there's some tracking systems you could do if you wanted to be a little nefarious, although I don't think that's the primary use. You could do, like I said, things like loyalty programs. So like this customer has been with us for a year or something like that, and now he gets the discounted pricing or something. Or maybe he spends $100 a month on gasoline. He's earned $5 worth of gasoline. And that'll attach to your Bitcoin address, and it'll be more or less automatic if they use Counterparty on their end, at least in your interface. But we can see them for all kinds of stuff. I know the BitNation people here were here were some pretty ambitious plans. We can think of things like even like the government space where tokens could be used, things like liquor licenses, or I guess, well, maybe medallions. I don't know if Uber's still going to make that relevant, but things like that. Tickets to events, of course. Maybe you want to get into the front door, so you either present your Bitcoin address, they scan it, they see that you have a ticket that's on there, or you just spend it outright at the gate. That'll let you in. Airline miles could follow around. That's the sort of quintessential example of private money. I don't know if that's MeetSpace money or not, but it might be. Coupons. Everybody remembers the days of cutting out coupons. Well, those could be loaded up on your blockchain wallet, and you could spend them at the store thereafter. That's very doable. Limited time offers, maybe something's available for the next day or so. They issue an asset, it's on your phone, and they call it back. So yeah, I think that it'll be useful in MeetSpace as well as Bitcoin becomes more ubiquitous. So there's more to Counterparty than just that, but I wanted to limit it just to the asset aspect. It's a new project. It's gotten very far in very little time, and it's done that not only because of very competent leadership, but also because the scope of the project is very much narrowed because it leverages so much from Bitcoin. Rather than reinvent Bitcoin, it just says, let's add to Bitcoin, which is unlike most or all of the other projects in that space. There are many betting features that are offered, bets on feeds, bets on events. There are contracts for differences. There are some basic option contracts, and everything is fully collateralized, so you don't have to worry about any counterparty risk. And there's more features being added all the time. So this is only a project that's been around for not even a year yet, and you're already seeing it eclipse almost every single competitor here in this space. So I have a lot of faith in this project for that reason alone. For anybody who's thinking about getting into Counterparty and wants to see what's being done, you can do what I do, which is the world's most boring and ridiculous job, but it's to monitor the blockchain for transactions and see what it is that people are doing. I principally limit it to the Counterparty blockchain, but you certainly can look elsewhere. But yeah, looking at the blockscan.com website for activity is a great way to pass time if you're a super nerd like me. So you're all encouraged to do that as well if you want to see what's happening in this space, because it changes quickly. And that's it. That's my spiel on Counterparty. I hope it gets you thinking. That's my main goal.